Hi everyone, welcome back to my kitchen for a little more science with things that you probably have in your kitchen, or if you don't, you can get them fairly easily. Today we're going to do super ball science. So I've gathered up the different materials that are needed, and don't worry about trying to take notes about what I'm doing right now. This is sort of a demonstration, and then I'm going to share a different screen with you that will have the recipe and a few challenge questions. So let's start in. So the first thing you're going to want to do is gather up some empty containers, like little cups. These are little yogurt cups. They're little glass cups. I've cleaned them up, taken the labels off, and I've labeled each one. So this one, I don't know if you can tell, it says borax solution. This one says hot water. I've got to put that in the microwave because it's not hot right now. And this one says ball mixture. So it's important to have those ready because you don't want to mix the wrong thing in the wrong cup. So having them labeled keeps you organized and keeps you doing it the way you're supposed to do it. So you get the correct end result. Now, just give me 1 second. I'm going to put this in the microwave so it'll be hot. Okay, so while that's microwaving, we're going to need other ingredients like, if you watched last time, we're going to be using the borax again. You get that at Walmart. It's in the laundry aisle over with the different stain removing things like OxyClean and Shout. This will be on the bottom shelf with those other things. And it's pretty inexpensive. But your mom or your dad might already have some in the house because it's used in laundry and it's used for all kinds of cleaning needs. So it's something a lot of people already have. One moment. Okay, so now I have my really hot water. Another thing we're going to need today is the good old Elmer school glue. We're going to need a tablespoon of that. We're going to also need our cornstarch. And just so you know, I already put my my borax in this little dish, so it would just be easier to scoop. All right, so those are all the things we need, and it's optional, but if you'd like some food coloring. Today I thought it might be fun to have an orange super ball, so I've got some yellow and some red. And when you mix the yellow and the red, you get orange. So I've got those ready and waiting. Oh, and then just a few different kitchen items. So I've got a chopstick, good for stirring. I've got a few different measuring spoons in the right sizes for what the science experiment calls for certain amounts of the ingredients. These are the right size. I also have an extra tablespoon. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. So let's start. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pour 2 tablespoons of this hot water into the cup labeled borax solution. Now, I already measured out 2 tablespoons in my little cup because I thought, why not? Makes it easier. But you can do a whole bunch more water and make it really hot and then measure it if you'd rather do it that way. Either way works, but here goes mine. So I'm going to pour it in my borax solution cup. There, so that's done. And then it says a half teaspoon of borax powder. So a half teaspoon of the borax powder right here. Whoop. So there's my half teaspoon. I'm going to put that in. And it says stir to mix the borax into the hot water until it's dissolved. So you got to stir it for a little bit. So dissolved means it's completely and thoroughly blended into the hot water, so you don't see any powder floating around anymore. So it might take about half a minute or so just to get it all blended into a solution. And that is looking very good to me. I'm going to stop now. The next thing we need to do is take our ball mixture, and it calls for, this is 1 tablespoon right here. I'm going to take my glue, and I think it's easier if we take the cap off the glue. Fill up my spoon with 1 tablespoon of glue. And then I'm just going to put that right in this cup. And I'm going to take my chopstick and just make sure I get all the glue out of my spoon because I don't want to waste any. And it's needed. So, okay. So there's my glue. My glue's all in there. The next thing it says to do is to add 1/2 teaspoon of the borax solution. So here's my borax solution, and here's my 1/2 teaspoon. So I'm going to take my borax solution, I'm going to put my spoon in there and make sure I get a whole 1/2 teaspoon. I've got a whole 1/2 teaspoon, and now I'm going to just put it in here. Okay, so there, that's in. And so you add that into the borax solution, and then you have to put 1 tablespoon of cornstarch into the borax solution cup as well. So just dip in, take a tablespoon, and I don't know if you can see, I put my tablespoon of cornstarch in. Again, this is what my cornstarch looks like. So that's all in. Make sure you put your cover back on it. And then, this is kind of boring, but you're just supposed to sort of let it sit for about 10 to 15 seconds. So I'm going to count to 15. So that'll be about 15 seconds. And I'm going to say 1 Mississippi every time. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi, 8 Mississippi, 9 Mississippi, 10 Mississippi, 11 Mississippi, 12 Mississippi, 13 Mississippi, 14 Mississippi, 15 Mississippi. Okay, so now that was about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you get to stir it. So I'm stirring it with my stick, and it says you have to keep stirring it until it's impossible to stir it anymore. So you can see I can still stir it, but in a little bit it's going to get really impossible to really stir it anymore. It's starting to get that way now. Oh, I forgot to put my food coloring in. Oh well. You know what? That's okay, because actually, let's see. I haven't done it this way before, but I'm just going to add mine a little late. I think it'll be okay. I got a little yellow and a little red. I need to be quicker, or this is going to set up. Okay. I might end up with a streaked Super Ball now. We'll see what happens. Well, no, I think it's going to work and be orange. Okay, so now you can see it's getting an orangey, fiery orange color. And I've got a little bit on the top of my chopstick here that I need to get down into the rest. That looks pretty good. I'm not going to really be able to stir it too much more. So I'm going to try to get as much of it out of my container as I can. See, it comes out, doesn't look like a super ball right now, but I'm going to take it off my stick and I'm just going to sort of mold it in my hand and roll it around. And see, it gets a little bit less goopy as you work with it. It's a little bit disgusting at first. My hands are gonna be orange. But you can do this to just kind of get it to stick to you. There, see how it's getting more like a less goopy and more solid? So once you get it so it's more solid, you just keep going like this in your hands. And you want to get a nice round ball. Good little workout for your arms, actually. So that looks pretty good. There's my super ball. Now, once you have it all as round as you think you're gonna get it, test it out. Give it a little bounce. Now, my super ball's fairly bouncy, but I bet you might be able to do this experiment and get a ball like this. And I have a challenge for you with these super balls. So, one thing I want to say before I go and share my screen, very important. So, borax is really interesting material, and it's good for a lot of things, but it is not good for pets or small children to eat borax, and there's borax in here. So, if you make a super ball, you need to make sure that you keep it away from your cat, your dog, any other pets you may have, and especially little brothers and sisters that might not know enough not to eat this. Another tip is to keep it in a Ziploc bag, and when you want to play with your ball, you can, but have mom and dad keep it up somewhere special so no pet or little brother or sister can get this, okay? So I'm going to share my screen with you. And when I do, you'll be able to see you'll be able to see my screen. There we go. All right. So here's my Super Ball Science screen. So here are all the materials. Actually, I have a better screen. Try this one. We're gonna do this one because it's better. I had it two ways. So here's my Super Ball Science screen. So the materials you need are, as I showed you already, you need 3 disposable cups. I used things out of my recycle bin. The yogurt we eat comes in these cute little cups that are very handy. Some masking tape. I happen to have white duct tape that I use to label my cups. Whatever you have that you can write on with a Sharpie. 2 tablespoons for measuring, a half teaspoon for measuring, a stir stick. I used a chopstick. Maybe you have a barbecue skewer or popsicle stick, whatever you already have. You're gonna need Elmer's school glue, 1 tablespoon. You're gonna need just a little bit, half teaspoon of borax, a tablespoon of cornstarch, and it's optional. The food coloring will make it whatever color you'd like, but if you don't have food coloring, it's okay. Your super ball will be a white color, and that's fine. So I'm not going to read all the slides to you because I just did it, but you can go back. This movie will be a recording, and you are welcome to pause the recording, and you can read through step 1 and read through step 2 and stop and do what it says and then go to the next slide. And once you've gotten all the way through step 6, then I have a little bit of information for you. So some of you joined me last time to make this lovely stuff. Get it out of here. We made silly putty. My silly putty's been in my bowl, but I'm squishing it and I can stretch it. So some of you made silly putty. And if you did, you learned a little bit about some different things. So one of the things you learned is silly putty is a special substance. It's a non-Newtonian substance, remember? Because if you leave silly putty alone at the same temperature, so just you set it in a dish, in a room, and the room's about 70 degrees. When you put it in a dish, it could be like a ball like this. But if you leave it over time, and I'm not sure quite how long it would take, maybe a half hour or so, this thing that's a ball will seem to like melt and take the shape of the dish, which is more like something a liquid would do than a solid. So we say it's a non-Newtonian substance. It doesn't really follow normal rules, okay? And we went over some other science words last time. Well, now that you've made a super ball and you've been doing some science experiments, I'd like to see if you can hypothesize, that means to make a realistic guess, about what might happen if you add more or less of one of the materials that we use to make a super ball. So you're going to change the variables. The variables are the different things like the glue and the borax and the cornstarch and the water. Change up how much you put in and observe what happens. And before you actually do it, make a guess about what you think might happen and see how close you are. Try making some different hypotheses and experimenting and observing to see if you can make a bouncier super ball. My first challenge question is, again, about the non-Newtonian substance. This little ball, I made a red one, and I made an orange one, and I lost my orange one. So I made this one earlier, and here's the one I made just now. Are these little balls, super balls that we made, is this a non-Newtonian substance? What do you think? Yes or no? And why do you think so? And challenge question number 2. So if you do some experimenting and you make the ball the way I just did, and then you maybe do it a few more times and you change up the different materials a little bit, let me know if you can figure out a way to make a bouncier super ball, because mine's bouncy, but I feel like maybe it could be bouncier. I don't know. Maybe one of you out there can figure out a way to make a super duper bouncy super ball. So if you think you come up with a really good way to do it after you've experimented, send me your recipe, send me your list of ingredients, and I'll share them on the library's website. All you have to do is email me, macedonlibrarydirector@owl.org, and I would love to share out some really cool super ball recipes. So have fun and be a really awesome kid scientist. Until next time, bye.